morning everyone. Today we are going to discuss about systematic literature review and meta-analysis. The points what we are going to discuss today will include what are the basic systematic literature reviews, the basic definition of it, and what is the difference between the literature review and the systematic literature review, relevance of systematic reviews in various subjects, steps to conduct the systematic review, what is meta-analysis, and what are the key takeaways from this session. So what we do is, traditionally in education we all have a habit of reviewing the literature and doing research have been viewed with distant activities, and reviews to find out what has already been pre-existing in the research on the topic from the various subject areas and what you are looking for, and new primary research to provide answers to questions about which existing research does not provide clear and or complete answers. So this is how we do a traditional review of literature in every subject when we try to find out answers of some questions. And how we conduct a review is important. So what are the different steps that we undertake, what are the methodology that we undertake to conduct a literature review or review of literature is very important and critical to get the exact and the correct answers to the questions we are looking for. And in any research field, it is very crucial to embed a research topic into a broader framework. You can't be too narrow to find out the answers, or you can't be very broad in looking for the literature. So there should be a research topic that you can fit into a broader framework of research areas in any scholarly discipline. And to build upon the knowledge of this area, you need to conduct a literature review and identify the gaps that are present in the literature to provide a rationale for the research you are investigating. What you are looking for, you should have an identified gap that you can only do after doing a literature review. So all researchers have to familiarize themselves with the existing body of literature on a given topic, and conducting a systematic review provides an excellent opportunity for this endeavor. In a systematic review, high level of analysis of primary research is performed on a specific research question in which original research data is identified, selected, evaluated and synthesized. So in systematic review, as the name suggests, it is a type of review which is conducted in accordance with some predefined steps and with a high team of analysts. So the primary purpose of the systematic literature review is to provide a comprehensive summary of scholarly literature related to a particular research question, and it as specified also that it is normally conducted and written by an expert panel after a thorough analysis of all the published and unpublished studies. So we have to be very careful when we are stating that systematic literature review also includes the unpublished data, whereas the normal narrative literature review or the review of literature that we do in generally through Google search does not include unpublished studies data. So in systematic literature review, in contrast to traditional or narrative literature reviews that are criticized of being biased. So everybody would have this question in the mind that why we are conducting a systematic literature review and what are the different advantages or differences between a normal narrative literature review and a systematic literature reviews. So we have to understand that the basic difference among these two is that we conduct systematic literature reviews to remove any kind of biasness. So biasness is created when we do narrative literature review through just typing a keyword in the Google and select a study by cherry picking. We like the study, so we are including it, or the study is appearing in first 2 pages of the Google research, so we are including it. So that is how we do, generally we do the narrative literature reviews. But in systematic literature reviews, there is no scope of doing any kind of cherry picking. Here we have a predefined protocol where it suggests, where it tells you that what kind of studies you have to include and what kind of studies you have to exclude. There are specific reasons behind inclusion and exclusion of any kind of study, and it doesn't have any kind of scope of biasness into it. The author's biasness is not involved into systematic literature review, because if the study is meeting the inclusion criteria of your protocol of a systematic literature review, then you have to include it. Or if it is not meeting the inclusion criteria of the protocol, then in any case, even if you are liking it, you can't include it. So the aim of a systematic review is to carry out a review that is very rigorous and transparent in each step of the review process to make it reproducible and updatable. So these two terms are very important. First is rigorous and transparent. It follows a rigorous methodology which is predefined in the protocol written for a systematic literature review. It has some guidelines associated with it, like PRISMA guidelines. You have to follow all the steps that has been mentioned in the PRISMA guidelines to conduct any kind of systematic literature review. Another step is it should be very transparent. From transparent, what we mean that each and every step is clearly defined. What you are including and what you are excluding is clearly stated with reasons, that why you have excluded a certain study, that also you have to specify with reason that this has been the case, so this study has not been included in your review. So this is very important. Another two terms in this point is very important is reproducibility and updatability. See, if you have been very transparent in conducting your systematic literature review and also accordingly you have reported it in a very clear manner, then the systematic literature review, if reproduced by another author or another researcher, the results should be exactly the same. So that is, it should be reproducible completely. Then updatable. For example, you conducted a systematic literature review by including the studies till 2020, and now in 2023 you are again planning to look what is the updated data that has been published related to your research question. Then you don't have to start the process again from square one. You can use that data till 2020 and just process the systematic literature review from 2020 to 2023 to include the updated data into it. So it is every time updatable. Whereas in narrative literature review, you find difficulties in updating that kind of literature review because that has not been processed in a systematic manner using certain guidelines. So rather than looking at any study in isolation, we need to look at the body of the evidence. So that is why we are focusing on systematic literature review as an updated upcoming field that has been coming up while conducting a literature review, either for your dissertations, either for your projects, or whatever the case may be. Systematic literature review is an upcoming field which helps you to identify the literature in a systematic manner and not in isolation, but as a body of evidence of literature that is being available. So if we look at this this image, which is an evidence pyramid that shows that how and at what level systematic literature reviews and meta-analysis are placed in an evidence pyramid, starting from a low level of evidence to a highest level of evidence, which we consider for policy makers, for decision makers to be considered in the development of any policies. For example, if we see at the lowest level, we have editorials or expert opinions which are published, where we can say this is my personal opinion and no other person has any right to say anything about it. So that is my personal opinion or expert opinion. Then comes at the level of evidence is the case reports and the case series, which are again at the lower level of evidence, which represents one person's details or up to 10 persons details. Then comes the case control studies. Moving further, we have cohort studies, and then we go ahead with the randomized control trials which are considered at a very high level of evidence in an evidence pyramid. See, if we can look at this, the systematic literature reviews and meta-analysis are coming above randomized control trials which are considered as very stringent, very rigorous. So they come at the top level of the evidence pyramid, having reporting the highest level of evidence, because it is an inclusion of not one study but multiple studies, and that also through rigorous method and a methodology which has been followed or which has been specified by some international guidelines, acceptable guidelines. So SLRs or systematic reviews apply explicit methods to the tasks such as comprehensive searching and the quality assessment of the study. So systematic reviews is not just inclusion of studies but also how we are including, how we are searching the studies to include them in our literature review is also very critical in systematic literature reviews, where we have to do comprehensive searching by creating search strategies, which we are going to look ahead into our coming slides, and also the quality assessment of the studies. So here we also explicitly define that what is the quality of the studies that has been included in this systematic literature review after following a methodology process. So there are therefore good reasons for applying systematic literature review methods to view different kind of studies, and systematic review methodology is well developed for trials. So for clinical trials, that is being the focus of the systematic review methodology when it was initially developed. But the debate about systematic approaches to reviewing non-experimental research is in early stages and has been in discussion for a long time now, that now the social scientists, the humanities people also can use the systematic literature review as their process, in their process of conducting the literature review or creating a narrative review. So the contribution that non-experimental and qualitative research can make to evidence-informed policy and practice has been limited in the past because of uncertainty how to include it in systematic reviews. So this has been a discussion point where we need to include a non-experimental and qualitative research into systematic review so that we can understand that what is being created as an evidence to develop or to draft any policies and make the practice. So that is why the systematic literature reviews inclusion as a part of non-experimental and qualitative research has been a focus in the recent past. So systematic reviews and meta-analysis are guided, as earlier stated, by PRISMA guidelines, and these guidelines help authors improve the reporting of systematic literature reviews and meta-analysis. So as discussed, the PRISMA guidelines are those guidelines that help you or guide you through all the process of systematic literature reviews and meta-analysis. They tell you what to write when you are writing about systematic literature reviews. If they tell you about what to write, then obviously it will guide you what steps needs to be inculcated while conducting the systematic literature reviews. And these PRISMA guidelines is a comprehensive guidelines that guide you step by step through the process of systematic literature reviews and meta-analysis. See, conducting a literature review, either kind, narrative literature review or systematic literature review, are very critical and very important because they both guide you through the next steps of the research you are going to conduct in either way, in your post-graduation courses, in your PhD courses, or you are writing any project, or you are trying to find answer to any research questions. So conducting a literature review or review of literature in a very ordered manner, in very rigorous method, is very important to get you to a particular point of answer to your questions or to identify the gaps in the research. Otherwise, your whole effort of conducting the review of literature would be fortified. So we don't want that our purpose of doing a research or doing a literature review is forfeited. So this is why the systematic literature review has been in focus for the very recent past now. So the comprehensive nature of a systematic review distinguishes it from traditional literature reviews, which typically examine a much smaller set of research evidence and present it from a single author's perspective. See, again, that we discussed that it is a focus point where we differ from traditional literature reviews, where a smaller set of research, for example, in normal narrative literature review or traditional literature review, what we do is we pick up generally first 20 or first 50 studies and interpret them and finally reach to a conclusion. Whereas in systematic literature reviews, all the published data that has been mentioned in a protocol that we have written for a systematic review, we have to include them, even if the number goes to 300 or 400 of the included studies, because they are meeting the criteria of inclusion of your protocol of systematic literature review. All the studies which are meeting the inclusion criteria, you have to include it. There is no scope of saying that okay, now we have reached to a number that we can't go beyond it. That is not possible. In systematic literature review, all the evidence is included into that particular literature review. So rather than it's just a single author's perspective in traditional literature reviews. So systematic reviews are important because they help to minimize the bias that would result from cherry picking studies in a non-systematic way. And unlike systematic reviews, literature reviews don't aim to produce an answer to a clinical question. See, this is the main difference where we considered why systematic literature review are the most important things, besides from being comprehensive. See, systematic literature reviews are done with an aim to answer any particular question, clinical question, whereas literature review are generally conducted just to identify the gap in the literature which has been existing, to create an additional research question. See, there is very important and major difference is that, again I am reiterating, systematic literature reviews are conducted keeping in mind to produce an answer to a clinical question that you already has defined, whereas literature reviews are generally conducted to identify the gap in literature so that you can develop a clinical research question, clinical or non-clinical research question. So this is the difference. One is to produce an answer and another is to develop a question, right? So there is a major difference among this besides the methodology difference. The methodology difference we will discuss in the coming slides. What are the different steps that we undertake to conduct a systematic literature review? So literature reviews can provide context or background information for a new piece of research, and they can also stand alone as a general guide to what is already known about a particular topic. This is just a reiteration of what I just said, that it provides a background or identification of a gap to conduct a new piece of research or what has already been known about a particular topic in the literature. So this is what literature reviews are done for. So sort of synthesis in literature review does not attempt to control for the author's own bias. Again, what I am saying, that very important difference among the two is systematic literature review is used to eliminate any kind of author's bias into the available literature, vast ocean of literature. See, we know that for every scientist it is publish or perish. Every scientist has to publish the results of the research they have conducted in their labs, in their hospitals or in their institutions. So every day thousands of papers are being published, thousands of manuscripts are being accepted by different journals, and they come into the market, they come into the databases. So how to compile them, how to get answers from all this literature in a guided process is what systematic literature reviews are. So in that case, there is no choice where author can say I am going to include this study or I am going to not include this study or exclude that particular study. So there is no scope of author's bias in such cases. So now we will try to understand about the process of conducting a systematic review, how different steps are undertaken, what are the different important milestones that we achieve while doing a systematic review process. In this case, the first and the foremost is you develop a research question that you want to get answer for. So the research question is what will tell you that what kind of studies you are going to include or what kind of studies you are going to exclude them. For example, if we want to study the difference between drug A and drug B on for example rheumatoid arthritis, we want to conduct a systematic literature review on this particular topic, that how efficacious a particular drug is in this particular disease. So we are looking into this disease area through systematic literature review process. So this is now our research question. So now we have developed a research question, then we will develop a complete protocol for this research question. This research protocol or systematic literature review protocol, what we call it as, is a very important step that we undertake, in which we define our research question and then we define our selection criteria, that what kind of studies we are going to include and what are the basis of exclusion of any particular study. Besides drafting our selection criteria, we will also define that how we are going to search for those studies. Searching is again very important in systematic review process because it should be very systematic, including all the literature that has been published on this particular area for this many years. So we develop a search strategy using various kind of terms and keywords with various Boolean terms, and also during this process we will pre-decide that what kind of bibliographic databases that we are going to use to search the most relevant studies. For example, the different databases that are available for medical journals, for example, is PubMed, Medline, Cochrane, Embase, Ebisco. So there are a lot of them. So we will search each of them and develop a different search strategy for each of these databases. So once we have worked upon the search strategy and the search databases, we will then conduct the searches and identify the study based on our predefined selection criteria, that is the inclusion and exclusion criteria. For example, after searching on the same topic, that is drug A, what is the difference in efficacy of drug A and drug B in rheumatoid arthritis, then we'll try to find out from these search databases that how many studies are fetched upon. If the number of studies that has been fetched upon are around, for example, they come about 10,000, then we apply the selection criteria that which studies needs to be included and which study needs to be excluded. Then we apply the selection criteria on two different steps. The first step is that we search or we study all the abstracts, right? So we need to identify the abstracts which we find that might be relevant to be included in our systematic literature review. So once this has been done, then we try to get hold of all the full text, because at the first go every full text is not available at the free so it has some charges. So we apply that, and then we go for the full text searching, and then we finally identify that okay, 230 studies are being included, which are then synthesized for results of individual studies into a database and to answer the research question depending upon the outcomes we are looking for. Once we have synthesized the results of these individual studies to answer the research question, the data is cleaned up, and then final meta-analysis or statistical analysis is being applied, and then we report these findings in a systematic review report process. So this is somehow a summary of systematic review process. We will discuss in detail in later sessions. Thank you.